Well, that was an ass kicking. And we're going to talk about it right here on Frogs Insider. Hey, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider presented by the Flying T Club. My name is Jamie Plunkett. I'm here as always with Melissa Treebwasser. We're going to break down TCU's 66-42 loss to SMU over in Dallas on Saturday.
Are you sure that's
second
the right
to last
score?
It was 66-42.
Okay, just wanted to make
it
sure.
It was. And TCU was on the 42 end of that score.
Okay. Cool.
I think I wrote undisciplined, unprepared, unacceptable was kind of like my headline for my recap of the game, just because it was all three of those things. We're going to get into that tonight on the show. We're also going to talk a little bit about volleyball and soccer, who had very good weeks.
Yeah.
Baseball fall camp is underway. I've been out to a couple of those practices and seen some things. I want to talk about that a little bit. So not all sad, not all bad on the episode tonight, but we are going to break down what went wrong for TCU on Saturday over in Dallas as well. Before we do all of that,
how long do we have, Jamie? This might be a two-parter
well,
if we do that.
This is a record. We're just recording. We can go for as long as we want, really, truly. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to have some things to say, but we'll get through it, Frog fans. We will get through it. Big shout out to our presenting sponsor, though, the Flying T Club, TCU's NIL Collective. You can go and visit flyingtclub.com to see how you can get involved with the over 110 TCU student athletes that they've signed and the organizations in and around Fort Worth that they partner with. They have 501c3 status. They are a nonprofit, and they partner TCU student athletes with organizations in and around Fort Worth to do some really cool and good work. So flyingtclub.com is where you can go to see how you can get involved with the FTC, TCU's NIL Collective. We're also a part of Dave Campbell, Texas Football's Republic of Football Network. You can get this show if you search Republic of Football Network wherever you get your podcasts. We will show up. That feed also has every other school, every other D1 school with the football program in the state of Texas has a show on the Republic of Football Network feed. So Republic of Football Network, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find our show along with 12 others. If you just want Frogs Insider, just search Frogs Insider, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. You can find the show there. We're over 640 subscribers on the YouTube channel, Melissa.
Yeah, that's
shockingly, Sonny's post-game press conference after the loss on Saturday was pretty popular with the fans.
Big numbers.
We're seeing a lot of comments on there, a lot from SMU fans, a lot from TCU fans as well. He had some interesting things to say, some things that I don't think resonated with the TCU fan base after his personal performance.
Yeah, might not be the word I would use, but he had things to say. Things were said.
Yes, things were definitely said. So go get the Frogs Insider stuff wherever you get your podcasts and on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment in the videos. We're trying to grow. When we get to 1,000 subscribers on the channel, we're going to do some pretty cool stuff, I think. So, I know, because I'm the one planning
here's the thing. At this point, I feel like every week has just felt like pain. And so why not just add physical pain to the emotional and mental pain that we're experiencing?
Maybe we could do some fun stuff. I think a spicy challenge would be fun for the people when we get to 1,000.
For the people, absolutely.
Maybe some meth as well, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But maybe we could do, a little giveaway or something.
Oh, a giveaway would be fun. Yeah, maybe some invitation, maybe a live show, like an on-location type thing. That could be a little celebration. That could,
nice.
Yeah, we're gonna make this football season fun, no matter what happens during the actual games.
No matter how we got to zhuzh it up.
Yeah, we're gonna
zhuzh it up. But Melissa, right now we can't zhuzh. We got to talk.
No, we are no zhuzhing.
Zhuzhing.
Jamie, this has been a rough weekend if you are a DFW sports fan, unless you are one of the 45 people that roots for SMU. I've heard from all 45 of you. I've had to private my Twitter account. That's how we're going.
Oh, dear.
Oh, yeah. I've been receiving threats in the DMs. So that's where we're at.
Come on.
Yeah, it's not cool. It's really not cool. Yeah.
Hey, SMU, look, you won. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good work.
And you
great football game.
Won.
Why are we in people's DMs threatening people? That's so stupid. That's so stupid. It's football, guys.
It's just a sport.
Freaking football.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's okay, Melissa. If they keep threatening you, maybe you just assume they can write you a check. We know they're pretty good at doing that. Anyways.
That is so true. Yeah.
Oh, the people in my DMs are going to be upset about that
one. Yeah.
But,
mine's private, so they won't be in mine. So
dang.
At least for the next 4 days. Yeah.
Come DM me. Let's see how that goes for you. Melissa, let's just jump right in because TCU lost 66-42. Embarrassing loss, humiliating loss to a crosstown rival who recently became P4. We rehashed how that happened. Doesn't really matter.
Power 4 win of the Rhett Lashley era.
With the loss, TCU falls to 3-8 in their last 11 P4 contests. Not very good. And it looked like they were wholly unprepared. Yeah. If you go back to Sonny's midweek comments, he said something along the lines of, I'm not really sure what to expect from SMU. And it looked like that on Saturday. It looked like TCU didn't know what to expect, which is why I can assume that as SMU was rushing for 238 yards, TCU never put more than 7 guys in the box.
Yeah.
I rewatched the first half. I still need to rewatch the second half, but I rewatched the first half on Sunday morning, and there was one instance in the first half of play where TCU put more than 6 players in the box. And that was on 4th and 1. They had 9 in the box, and SMU still got 3 yards. But it just, the lack of adjustments, the lack of down linemen, like hands in the dirt linemen. There were multiple times where there were only 2 against a team that very clearly wants to run the football.
Yeah.
What the hell are we doing? I didn't understand TCU's game plan defensively when you knew they had a mobile quarterback and a veteran running back. That has to be your priority.
Well, and this is where I'm getting frustrated with how things are being executed, or the lack of execution through 4 games. 2 of the 4 games, Sonny Dykes has said that teams came out with defenses that they didn't anticipate and they weren't ready for. The third of that 4 game, they came out and they said that they weren't expecting what they saw offensively, which to me is absolutely inexcusable when they made the switch to their more mobile, run-oriented quarterback on a bye week. For exactly the reason that we saw, because we knew that Jennings' mobility and what TCU had done against the run leading up to this point, if you were Rhett Lashley and company, you would automatically say, hey, I watched tape of UCF. We're going to run the ball down TCU's throat, and we're going to be successful at it because we've watched literally every team that TCU has played. So how do you not know that that's coming? How are you not prepared for that? You saw that. I saw that. Everybody that we know at TCU fully expected them to switch to Jennings and run the football, and that's exactly what they did. So I don't understand why you aren't prepared for that aspect of it. But I do think that there's more than an Andy Avalos issue. I think not having enough guys in the box against UCF and SMU is inexcusable, but we've seen the offense not be prepared either. And TCU was down 17-0 with the defense having only been on the field 1 time and surrendered 3 points. And so this was a special teams issue. This was an offensive issue. This was absolutely a defensive issue. But before you could even blame the defense, TCU had committed so many errors that the defense was playing from behind, and SMU was allowed to just execute the game plan that they wanted to execute, run the ball at will, and the wheels had come off before the key had been put in the ignition.
Yeah, let's talk about that punt return touchdown for a second, because that is
Can we not?
Yeah, we're going to, because it's as I was rewatching the first half today, I was clipping some things and posting them on Twitter, and one of the things I looked at was that punt return, because in post game, Sonny very clearly blamed it on Ethan Crawl. He said he kicked it too low, and it got on TCU. The receiver got on TCU too fast. They weren't whatever. Blah blah blah. They were lined up on the right hash for this punt, and as the ball leaves Craw's foot, you can go look at the screenshot, Melissa. All 11 TCU players are on the right side of the far left hash. Nobody moves out left. It's like they in the group text today, I can't remember who said it. Someone said it's like they overcorrected for something they saw on film. Yeah.
I know who said it. I'm not going to say it because I want people to listen to the rest of the
Fair. I don't remember who it was. But nobody, not a single TCU player ever got to the left side of the football field. And then all of a sudden, one guy slips and falls, JT Broughton, who also had a ridiculous penalty later in the quarter.
Yeah, he's had a rough couple of weeks.
And it's just caravan. Nobody in sight. So terrible coverage on that punt. Regardless of how Craw punted the ball, the coverage was terrible. So special teams error number 1 on the day, of which there were multiple.
Well, and I think you make the point of Broughton kind of slipping and falling. I was down taking photos. I only stayed on the field for the first half because it was well over 100 degrees and the game was so out of hand. I spent the second half in the press box because I'm not going to die on the field to take pictures of what was happening. But so many, it's just not worth it. New lens or not, but so many of those, I just noticed how many times TCU players were diving and letting SMU players slip through. The tackling was unbelievably atrocious, and it was hot. That field did look pretty slick. It was a turf field, and heat can sometimes feel a little bit. But SMU didn't seem to have a problem tackling against TCU very much, at least in the run game. And there were so many guys just diving at the legs of ball carriers that were easily able to step out and step through. And that to me is an effort issue, right? And we heard in the post game again that this was the best week of practice that they had, that Sonny was shocked that they did not come out ready to play because he felt like they were super prepared. And I feel like the broken record is getting overplayed. This team did not come out nearly as energetic and fired up as SMU was. It did not mean as much to them as it did to SMU. That was clear. And their execution and energy level was indicative of that, because they were playing at 70% speed and SMU had their foot all the way down on the gas pedal. And again, like I don't look at either of these teams and think, wow, these are contenders. What SMU did to TCU does not make me think, wow, this is a great team. SMU has struggled this season, but how badly they beat the brakes off of TCU does not make me necessarily be like, wow, SMU is a true contender. It makes me think like TCU might be in serious trouble here if they do not know how to turn on the switch, because we saw that in the second half against Colorado last year, and it seems like that record is replaying itself in 2024.
It's a really interesting point that you make, and you talked about how important this game was to SMU, and it is every year. Sure. And Sonny made an interesting comment immediately after the UCF game in his midweek, and then again in post game after the loss to SMU. He said something along the lines of, it's a really big game for them. It's a really big game for them. It's the biggest game for them. And I didn't ask it in the moment because I was thinking about something else that I wanted to ask. But on Tuesday, I think I'm going to ask, hey, you said this multiple times last week. Was it a big game for you too? Because that comment makes me think that it wasn't, and your team picked up on that. Yeah. And chose to treat it like it wasn't an important game to play.
But was it not a year ago? Because SMU they're better this year, absolutely. And again, I'm not trying to say SMU isn't very good. TCU is really terrible. SMU played an elite game of football. They took advantage of every TCU mistake. Yeah, and they forced TCU into a ton of mistakes. But would you be surprised if they came out and lost to Florida State? No, like we don't. I still don't feel like we know who SMU is. I think they have a lot to prove, but I think that they found something that works under Jennings. Yeah. And if he can continue that against a run defense that is better than TCU's, which is certainly possible, then they could be a competitor in the ACC. But how do you go with a quote-unquote worst TCU team in 2023? And again, this is SMU Super Bowl every year. It wasn't less important to them a year ago, if that's what that's the agenda you're selling, that Sonny Dykes is selling, and beat them 34-17, and then come out with an arguably more talented, more complete, more together team and get whooped so embarrassingly badly. Like that's where I'm just feeling the disconnect. And a lot of commenters and a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of TCU folks have said, like, we feel like we're hearing these platitudes and these same words over and over again, but nothing is changing. And at what point, as a coach, if this is what you're seeing and this is what you're telling the media and telling the fan base, do you have to like own up and make a change? And why and that change wasn't changing the defensive coordinator. And I don't know what it is. And I'm not going to sit here and advocate for people to lose their jobs. I don't want to be that fan base, right? Or that podcast. But it hasn't been enough. And so what happens next? How do you get accountability in your team and in your coaching staff to get guys ready to play every week? Because you could say over the last 2 years, this team has not been ready to play more often than it has been ready to play.
I agree, and I don't know what the answer to the question is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't either. It's easy for us to ask it, right?
Yeah, it is. If we're sitting here, we can ask these questions, and we don't have to answer them. Sonny Dykes does, his staff does, his players do. But the reality is that he projected something consistently over the course of the week that it's an important game for them. But the way he said it indicated to me, at least, that it wasn't as big of a deal for TCU. And you saw the difference in effort and attitude between those two programs on the field on Saturday. One team thought it was a big game, treated it like a big game, obviously prepared for it like it was a big game. And one team, I don't know. We heard one of the platitudes, Melissa, that I know you're alluding to. We heard from Sonny Dykes afterwards. we had a great week of practice.
Yeah, I don't ever want to hear that sentence ever come out of his mouth again, if I'm being really honest. It just, and this is the other part too, because I think you bring a good point. SMU treated this like a big game. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
TCU treated UCF like a big game, and they completely fell apart in the second half of that game. And I'm sure there is a hangover element to that, and SMU did come off of a bye. Yeah. But if I'm building a championship program, we know this from last year. How you respond matters more than what happened. And if TCU had bounced back and put themselves in a position to be competitive, to battle with an SMU team that on paper these two teams should have been competitive. TCU, frankly, was probably, I mean, they were favored on the road, not by a lot, but I think it was like 2.5 point spread. They were favored on the road for a reason. But I was talking to somebody that's close to the team after the game, and this person said, this is starting to feel a lot like 2023, and that scares the crap out of me. And that, I think, as a fan base, that's like, okay, we feel like the leadership is better. We've heard all of the right things all through spring ball, all through camp, how much this team loves each other. We've seen how they gravitate towards Josh Hoover. We've seen the leadership of guys like Johnny Hodges. We've seen all the things that we want to see from the outside. But when it comes to the important games on the field, we haven't seen that come to fruition. And this, in college football, things spiraled down a heck of a lot more quickly than they spiral up.
It's true. And Sonny mentioned after the game, I think it was Stephen Johnson of the Star Telegram asked him if he's worried about this loss impacting TCU like the Colorado loss did last year. And he said yes, which was interesting because he said after the UCF loss that he didn't think that loss would impact TCU like the Colorado loss did. So it's going to be really, we're in that danger zone right now of, hey, how is TCU going to respond? They've got another road game this week. It's a conference game against another team that's getting desperate in Kansas.
Very desperate Kansas team.
So we'll see how TCU responds. Melissa, we got to talk to Sonny Dykes after the game like we do every single week. But one of the things that was different about this week is that we talked to Sonny Dykes after he did not coach essentially the entire second half of this football game because he got ejected. And this is probably what we should have led with, but I was fired up about the run defense, so that's what we led with.
It's honestly, it's an afterthought of the story because of how bad everything else was, which just tells you a lot of how bad the game was overall.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it was bad. But I mentioned the special teams, the multiple special teams challenges. Obviously, there was the punt return touchdown. SMU had a kickoff return for a touchdown that the officiating crew, which had a bad day, had a very bad day, said he stepped out of bounds. Replay, it was close.
It looked obvious to me, but
it looked close. I don't know. I saw green on one angle, but they had blown the play dead, so what can you do?
Yeah.
And then TCU took the opening kickoff of the second half back for a touchdown. It was called back because of a holding penalty. I watched the play multiple times. I don't think I saw a hold. That's neither here nor there. It got Sonny riled up. He got a 15-yard penalty on sportsmanlike conduct. He stopped for a moment. I don't really know exactly what happened on the sideline after that first penalty, but he got a second unsportsmanlike conduct penalty one play later from a different official and got tossed from the game. It's the first time I can recall a football coach being ejected. It's Sonny's first time being ejected in his career. He said afterwards he didn't feel like it was warranted. He said he earned the first flag. He said he didn't feel like the second one was warranted. He wasn't terribly sure where it came from. But the reality is, Melissa, when your head coach gets tossed, and then you look at the final stat lines and you see that TCU committed 14 penalties for 135 yards, the most in a game for TCU since 2020. The undisciplined nature of this football team from a penalty standpoint, from a tackling standpoint, from a run game standpoint, how can you expect the players to be undisciplined if Sonny Dykes is that undisciplined? And let's be honest, this is, I think, the first time he's gotten an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. This is not the first time
he's earned one.
He's been in the official's face.
Yeah.
This is starting to become a pattern with Sonny of, hey, I'm going to chew your ass out because of this call that I didn't like. And he runs it and he runs it and he runs it and he carries it for a long time with these guys. And I'm concerned that not only for this game getting ejected, but he is now kind of establishing a reputation that is going to hurt TCU on the field because of the way he is handling these officials and treating these officials.
You know, I've been a coach for a really long time. I've coached at every level from elementary school through college. There's
in a sport where coaches getting tossed is a little more common.
Yeah, this is true. Well, and I I've coached 7-on-7 and almost got tossed in my first season. I came really close, but
fair enough.
But I will say this: there is an art and a science to a technical foul, or the equivalent in football would be an unsportsmanlike penalty. And as a coach, you're trying to constantly work the official in a way that is both getting your point across, but still being a little bit endearing, so that late in a game, when you need a little payback, you're hoping that you've gotten enough in that ref's ear, because refs are very human, to where they are going to listen to you, but that you also haven't overstayed your welcome to the point to where they don't want to hear from you anymore. And, you know, when I was coaching JV basketball or freshman basketball, my best skill was I would get just to the edge with the officials, and I almost always made sure that my JV coach got a tech because of how upset I would get the officials without ever getting the whistle. And the minute he said something, he would get the whistle. He got really mad at me because it happened like 3 or 4 times in a row. So there is something to be said about firing up your team by making a common enemy of the official in that regard. But like you said, it doesn't happen in football very often. And with the way that game was going and how badly TCU was playing, it did not show, I'm going to fire up my team. And there's pictures that the TCU 360 kids got pictures of Sonny like fist pumping and like doing all of this as he was walking out. And he owned it. So like credit to him, but it spoke way more of immaturity, lack of discipline, lack of focus than it did of, I'm trying to do something to get my team turned around. Yeah. And he acknowledged that, and he knows that. The players were very coy about, yeah, it's hard, but we just got to keep going. It gave you a nice little viral Twitter moment with acting head coach Kendall Briles that Reddit, the college football, picked up. But it just, in that situation, it just goes to serve as making TCU even further the butt of the joke. And Sonny very much took responsibility, but you're right. I think he is earning a reputation. We saw this, going back to 2022. I can't remember how many times I saw Max kind of trying to calm Sonny down on the sidelines in situations. And maybe Max deserves more credit than we even give him for what happened in 2022 based on what we've seen since. But
Max and Quentin and Darius and Steve
all of those guys,
and
right?
Trey Tomlinson. And
but it's just another... It just puts forth another question mark when it comes to who is this program? What are they about? What is their foundation built on? What type of program do they want to be long term? Is this a sustainable model? Are things being built the correct way? And I'm hopeful that, I think it was very obvious Sonny was embarrassed for getting ejected, for the way his team lost, for how ill prepared they looked. But he could have said that 3 or 4 times last year too. And at some point, again, I don't know the answer to the question. You don't know the answer to the question, but what are they going to do to fix it? Because we are very much on a path to another 5-7 season if something doesn't change with how this team goes from Tuesday to Saturday. Because it's not in sync.
It's not in sync, and it goes back to we had a great week of practice comments. It goes back to, because you're right, he did take responsibility after this game, but he's done that a couple of times now. Yeah. Where he said, that starts with me, that starts with the head coach. At some point, you got to stop accepting responsibility and start taking actions that fix the problem. And clearly right now there's a disconnect between head coach and coaching staff and players. Clearly there's a disconnect between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And whatever it takes to fix that disconnect needs to happen. If it's a hard conversation with some players, then it's a hard conversation with some players. If it's shuffling responsibilities in the coaching room, then it's shuffling responsibilities in the coaching room. If it's taking a step away from being the CEO and being a football coach is more on the table, then that's what it needs to be. Because the reality is that he is at a precipice right now where things can get really bad.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't make the changes necessary to turn the momentum back around again, his seat's going to start getting pretty warm. He's not going to get fired at the end of this year. It's just not going to happen. But 2025 could be a make or break year for Sonny Dykes if things don't get turned around at the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of out of excuses. Like, I think we all did not accept the results of 2023, but you could very easily justify based on the long recruiting cycle, the hangover from the national championship. But at some point, like, when did the excuses stop and when do the changes start? And I think that's where we're at right now. He made a big change with his defensive coordinator. He brought in a guy that by all accounts seemed like a good hire. And he was very, from what we heard from some people around the room, he was not happy with the way his defense played. And I think when you talk about what you've been breaking down with the amount of guys in the box and not making adjustments, I think there's absolutely some onus and some blame there. You can defend the offensive side of the ball with the 42 points, but I would argue back that at least 21 of those points came in pretty meaningless situations. Yeah. By that point, it was so over. You know, I think we all love Josh, the leader, and he's been really good. I mean, he has some of the best statistics of any quarterback in the country. He's thrown for more yards than all but I think 3 other quarterbacks. But he had a bad day, and he admitted that, and he's always very quick to take ownership. The offensive line has had a bad season. The running game is, I don't think calling it a disaster is unfair. We don't know how to evaluate Cam Cook at this point. I think he can get better, but he's also inexperienced, and I think he hasn't been given a lot of opportunity to be successful. The wide receivers, which is supposed to be the strength of this team, I mean, we saw a wide open dropped ball that I do not know how that ball was not caught, and we saw multiple drops over the course of the game too. I mean, there is so much blame. The linebackers were very bad yesterday. That's another group or Saturday. That's another group that we expected to be really strong. I think that you can really point a lot of ownership for not just this loss, but the way the season has progressed at individual players, at player units, at individual coaches, at coaching units. I mean, this is a wholesale issue with this program now that is stretching into its second year, and the talent is not the issue. The talent, I believe the talent is there. The talent is not performing up to expectations. Like, we don't need to bring Gary Patterson to this conversation, but the Paper Tigers, like the how do you play on Saturdays, you know, one of his favorite lines is really coming to bear here in a way that's just not very enthusing for TCU fans.
Yes. So let's talk about the offense for a second. You've already gotten into it. The offensive line struggled mightily. They cannot block for the run to save their lives.
They can't.
It's embarrassingly bad. There were multiple times where Cam Cook had no other option, or whoever was running the football had no other option than to bounce to the outside because at least 1 or 2 or 3 of the interior linemen got pushed on their ass or missed a block completely.
Yeah.
There were multiple times where a guard would pull or a tackle will pull. There's one play that I documented in my thread on Twitter. Strickland and Nichols both pull right side of the line. They're pulling to the left to create some room for Dominic Johnson in the red zone. Strickland pulls, misses his assignment, contact with Johnson in the backfield. Johnson makes the guy miss, breaks the tackle, hits the gap, and gains about 7 yards. But the gap was there because Nichols, when he pulled, stopped short and then got outrun by the linebacker and had to hold. And so it's a 10-yard penalty going the other way. So 2 mistakes on one play, that stands out to me. But there were multiple times where they didn't get any push off the line. You can go back and watch pretty much any offensive drive for TCU, and they're just getting stood up. Like, they're not getting downfield on their running blocks at all. And it's so difficult for a running back to hit a hole with violence and speed when they're not sure that the hole's going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, so there are definitely opportunities that on film where you're like, ooh, there was an opening, Cam should have taken it. Cam Cook probably didn't know it was going to be there. And yes, he should hit the hole when he sees it. But I also can't blame a young running back for trying to bounce it outside because he feels he has a better opportunity to gain some yards that way. Yes, the passing game is in really good shape. I don't understand how this offensive line is so good at pass blocking and so bad at run blocking. It just I can't wrap my arms around it. And there were the individual PFF grades and some of the individual ability to pass block, I think, is helping out some one or two guys along the line who are not having a great pass blocking season either. But the reality is that Josh Hoover has, for the most part, plenty of time to throw the football, plenty of time to get it downfield to his receivers. And he's done that well up until Saturday, where he missed on a handful of throws that we have seen him make in the first 3 weeks of the season. I say all that to say this. When the run game is terribly ineffective, and that's where we are right now with this TCU offense, terribly ineffective, and you're relying on your quarterback to throw it 50 times a game, and other mistakes pile up, and all of a sudden you're down in points where you have to shorten your playbook and start throwing the ball a little bit more. It would behoove you to simplify the passing game, to abandon some play actions, abandon throws behind the line of scrimmage, and start playing to your quarterback's strengths. But we never saw that from a play calling perspective on Saturday. An example, 4th and 2, again, in the red zone. TCU is down at this point 17-0 in the first quarter. 4th and 2, they run the Jack Besh out to the left, in motion towards the line, stops, breaks away from the line as the ball is snapped out into the flat. He catches the ball, a low throw, one of Hoover's kind of misaccuracies of the day, a low throw with his back turned to the line to gain, a yard behind the line of scrimmage on 4th and 2. So he's 3 yards away from the line to gain. This is the play call at this point. This is the design of the play, is to throw it behind the line of scrimmage on 4th and 2. He catches it, he turns up, and a DB is in his face. And if Jack Besh wasn't so damn strong and so stubborn, he doesn't make that first down. And TCU turns the ball over on down 17-0. He got the first down. TCU scored a couple plays later, started to cut into the lead a little bit. But there's some things with this offense, even though it put up 42 points, even though Josh Hoover's 3rd in the nation in passing and Jack Besh is 4th in receiving yards in the nation. There are some things with this offense that still kind of have you scratching your head. Another thing, if you're not struggling to run, or if you're struggling to run the ball and you've almost abandoned the run completely like TCU did on Saturday, why are we still running play action? What is the benefit of putting your quarterbacks back to the defense when he knows and the entire defense knows and everyone in the stands knows you're not running the football? Why are you giving them more time to get pressure on your quarterback? You're hanging by a thread as an offensive line as it is. But here, TCU, through the first 4 games of the season, Melissa, they have a play action and RPO rate of 55%.
Jeez.
That's one of the highest in the country. But their rush rate is one of the lowest in the country at only 25%. So there's a huge amount of time there where teams know, hey, TCU's probably not actually running this, but we're still going to run play action to try and maybe get something going. When you're already one-dimensional, just simplify and execute.
Yeah.
Simplify and execute.
You can guess pass. It's like playing NCAA 25, right? You could switch on your R3, you can hit the things up, you can guess pass, and even if you're wrong, you know you're still going to probably hold TCU to a 3-yard run. Yeah. It's what we went into this Kendall Briles era believing, that a lot of this offense is empty calories. And outside of, really one drive at Stanford, when TCU has needed a score, they have been unable to get that score in those critical moments. We saw it against UCF, the final 2 drives of that game, and really the second to last drive is the one that I point to as being problematic. We saw it against SMU when they had opportunities to take the lead towards the end of the half. And you talk about the pass protection. Well, that was the instance where it wasn't good, where the whole side of the line collapsed. Jack Besh was wide open. Josh had to get flushed out, had to throw to a double-covered J.P. Richardson. It turned into an interception. pick six. And there have been so many of those instances where TCU had the opportunity to either put a game out of reach or to take a lead or to get back into contention in these losses, and they haven't been able to execute. It's I can give you 20 yards when you don't need any. Can I give you 2 when you need 1? And for the most part, over the course of the last season plus, the answer has been no. I don't want to put this on the feet of Josh Hoover whatsoever. I don't know if he's an elite quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback, and I think that he is more than good enough to take TCU to a Big 12 championship if put in a position to be successful. Like he's not. Josh Hoover's not the problem. Period.
No, Josh Hoover's not the problem. Josh Hoover's one of the best players on this football team.
Yeah.
Josh Hoover's one of the best players on this football team. You're right. He is not the problem. He had a bad day on Saturday, and there were still, if one or two other things happened from special teams perspective and a defensive perspective, Josh Hoover's performance was still maybe enough to win that football game.
Yeah. I'm not going
to. They on 4th and 1, choosing to run the triple option for the first time all year was also a choice, right? Yeah. Which ended in a fumble, scoop and score. And Josh will say that he's down. He was down. He thought he was down in the moment. He said he thought he was down after the game. The ball is coming loose as he's pulling it back from Dominique Johnson. And if he still has it, maybe he gets the pitch out in time. Anyways, triple option for the first time all year on a 4th and 1 at the 50 is a choice. Josh Hoover's not the problem. Josh Hoover, even on a day where he turned the ball over 4 times, Josh Hoover, not the problem.
I think a lot of his statistics are inflated by the fact that TCU doesn't have a run game, and so I'm not going to sit there and be like, this is a top 5 quarterback in the country by any stretch of the imagination. But TCU can be successful with Josh Hoover at quarterback. There's absolutely no argument against that.
The reality too is going into Saturday. I mean, it's not just the raw yardage. I mean, he was completing passes at a 70% clip. He's making the right decisions. He's getting the ball out on time and accurately until Saturday, and he still had some really good throws on Saturday as well.
Yeah.
But quarterbacks are going to have off days. It's about overcoming those as a team, and TCU in no way, shape, or form was prepared to overcome some of the mistakes that they made in the offensive passing game. They just weren't.
This is a talented football team. This is not a good football team right now. And because it is a talented football team, it can become a good football team. But if you go out to Arrowhead Saturday afternoon and you fall to Kansas and all of a sudden you're 0-2 in Big 12 play on a 3-game losing streak and it's still September, we saw how quickly, frankly, this team quit a season ago. And there's been nothing to show me that we couldn't be going down a similar path in 2024 if that were to happen. Now, if they come back and win, and now all of a sudden you're 1-1 in the Big 12 and a wide open Big 12 again because you've got Utah without Cam Rising getting a win at Oklahoma State. BYU might randomly be the front runner after what they did to Kansas State. So you are not out of this race. You're going to have a 1-loss team, potentially a 2-loss team playing in Arlington for a Big 12 championship. But at this point, I don't blame any TCU fan that doesn't have confidence that they can come out and beat a reeling Kansas team either, based on what we've seen the last 5 quarters of football. Yeah,
Kansas opened as a 2-point favorite. Technically, home field at Arrowhead, really more of a neutral site. So it's kind of a toss-up in the eyes of Vegas and the odds makers at this point, but this is the 5th week in a row where TCU is facing a mobile quarterback and a veteran running back. And for the love of God, put more than 6 men in the box. Just start there or bring guys down. This is something, too, I don't think I told you this yet, Melissa. I was walking out of the stadium on Saturday night with our good friend Mike Craven, who you got into it with on Twitter this week.
A little bit.
But Mike was at Rhett Lashley's post-game press conference, and one of the things that he said Lashley mentioned multiple times was that Lashley was surprised TCU never dropped safeties down into the box. He said it three times in the post-game press conference, according to Mike Craven. Lashley they never dropped down. We kept expecting them to load the box. We kept expecting them to drop guys down, and they just never did it. And I don't know if it was, hey, they're going to expect us to do this, so we're not, and hopefully they'll throw it, which is a wild overthink.
Bad strategy.
Because the goal against a young quarterback who's mobile and an old quarterback who's mobile, like last week against UCF,
make
them throw the football. Sometimes they beat you, like KJ Jefferson did last week. but sometimes they don't. And you never made Kevin Jennings sweat in the passing game on Saturday, not for a single second.
No, it did not make me feel good when I asked Abe Kamara in the post-game press conference about facing multiple quarterbacks and the fact that Ashley Daniels had success and KJ Jefferson had success and then Kevin Jennings had success, and now your reward for that
is Jalen
Daniels. And I asked them what their strategy was, what they were working towards, how did they work to contain, and he didn't have an answer. That's not his fault. No. That means to me that they're not, are you putting it in contained? We've all played enough video game football to just put a spy. TCU has athletic enough linebackers. Put a spy, keep somebody down low. I was coaching 12U flag football today, and they were running a run-heavy kind of a bunch offense with a running quarterback. And so we just dropped a spy and kept a girl near the line just in case they did it. And you know what? They couldn't beat us with their arm. And they stopped picking up chunks of yardage on the ground. It's just not, I don't understand why that's not even an effort to try for TCU right now. And if they don't do that on Saturday, we get what we deserve. And that's kind of the moral of the season right now is we get what we deserve, I guess.
I mean, you've given up 527 rushing yards in the last 2 games. If you're content to give up 200 rushing yards a game, then you're probably not going to win many more football games this year.
No.
That's just the way that is. Melissa, we've dissected this enough, I believe.
I'm ready to move on. On to Kansas City.
Kansas, 2:30 Central Time, ESPN Plus at Arrowhead. Frogs and Jayhawks. Jayhawks open as a light favorite. We will see. They're desperate. The Jayhawks are desperate. I know we're going to have some good preview stuff going later this week, so y'all keep an eye out for that. But Melissa, let's talk about some positive stuff.
Yeah, there's so many good things happening in TCU athletics right now.
Women's volleyball had a great week.
Whew.
And women's soccer had a great week. Melanie Parra, tournament MVP in this tournament that they just had. She's on pace for All-American status at the end of the year.
Unbelievable.
She's crushing it right now. And then TCU soccer picked up 2 conference wins.
Caroline Kelly has had herself a week. The transfer from St. Louis University she got the game winner today against Arizona with just a beautiful goal off a deflection. Just another delightful human being for that team. It was also really fun. TCU beat BYU Thursday night in a way that BYU had not been beaten in more than 5 years. They had not lost a game by more than 3 goals, I think, in over 5 years. And it wasn't just a win. It was an absolute beatdown of the prohibitive favorites to win the Big 12 this year. And it was cool because Caroline Kelly had a goal. I think with today's goal, she's up to 4 or 5 on the season now. She's been electric. When you have her and Bella Diorio in that forward spot, there's just so much speed and so much chaos. But you also had 4 freshmen that got their names in the scorebook for the first time this season. Cam Patton, one of the smallest people on the field, but one of the most physically tough. The kid's playing with like a almost a soft cast on her wrist and just getting into it with everybody. She notched an assist against BYU. Morgan Brown, who's worked her way into a starting role with that team. She brings a lot of size with that TCU team. Still isn't very big. Playing in the middle of the field. She got her first goal on just an incredible header. Jordan Whitaker is another player who's really stepped up and is contributing at a high level. I mean, this team has so much depth across the board in so many areas, and their youth is really contributing at an early point in the Big 12 season. So TCU's struggled to be consistent on offense, but they've been really good about timely goals when it matters. They're 2-0-1 now in Big 12 play. They tied Texas Tech to 0-0, and they beat BYU, beat Arizona today. Huge game against Arizona State coming up on Sunday afternoon before they head out on the road for a couple of games. So, again, I'm going to say it every week. If you have not had a chance to go out and watch TCU soccer, the atmosphere is electric. The players are incredible. They are so fun to watch, so physical. I mean, these games are like MMA matches, it seems like at some point. TCU doesn't start it, but they finish it. And I'm super excited to have gotten to cover them so much this year, and I'm looking forward to the meat of this Big 12 season. And then, like you mentioned, volleyball's got a big game. They've got conference play coming up this week. They'll welcome both Arizona schools into town Wednesday and Friday night. Arizona State, I think, first, and then Arizona. Like you said, Melanie Parra is on the road to being an All-American. You want to watch this young woman play. She is an absolute force, and she's not the only superstar on this team. This is a ranked program. This is a program that has a chance to make some real noise in a really, really good women's volleyball conference. And they've got a great slate of home games and home conference competitions. So get out to Schulmeyer Arena, get out to Garvey Rosenthal. If you have a bad taste in your mouth from what happened Saturday, the easiest way to salve it is go watch soccer, go watch volleyball, get behind them. Just really incredible programs that are doing things the right way and are getting a lot of wins in the column to support that.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love seeing the clips and the highlights. I need to be a better coverer of all things TCU athletics.
It's a lot. There's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot going on. But you did get out to baseball, and I didn't get out to baseball this weekend. So
this is true. So check out TCU volleyball this week, Wednesday against Arizona State, and Sunday, you said, against Arizona?
Friday. I think it's Wednesday and Friday
Arizona.
This week, yeah.
Do that, Frog fans, because...
Yeah, Arizona State Wednesday, Arizona Friday. You've got soccer next Sunday. They are away at Houston on Thursday night, and they are at Baylor on Sunday. So this is the start of a 3-game road trip for our women's soccer team. So they've got a tough run here, but if they can get a couple wins under their belt, they've got a chance to move into that top 2 or 3 of the Big 12 and position themselves well for the second half of the conference season.
You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it.
I do. I'm such a fan of that program. I know very little about soccer, and I am learning so much, but I absolutely love going to those games.
Yeah. They're a good time. They're always packed.
Yeah.
Always packed. Melissa, let's stop down and just for a few moments here talk about a sport that's not going to kick off its actual season until February of 2025. But baseball fall camp has gotten underway, and they've started with some inner squads right out of the gate, first weekend of camp, to try and get a read on some of the new faces that they've got in camp this year. This is an interesting fall for TCU. They're coming off of a missed postseason. It's just the third time in the last 20 seasons that TCU missed the postseason. They have a ton of new faces. They added some new faces to the coaching staff. They added an old face back to the coaching staff in Bill Mosello. And this is, we're seeing some parallels, frankly, between Sonny Dykes' offseason in 2023 and Kirk Sarlos' offseason in 2024, where you churn a little bit. Staff and roster. And you take a different approach to fall camp. I had a chance a couple weeks ago to sit down with Kirk and talk about what he was doing a little bit differently this fall, if anything, to try and just reset and reframe things for the guys. And he said that he was focusing, not that they had stopped doing this in the past, but that he was making it more upfront and intentional, talking about culture, talking about what it means to represent TCU, what it means to play TCU baseball, what the standard is for TCU baseball, because they're getting so many new bodies in every year, whether that's freshman class or transfer portal. It's hard to maintain a culture when half of the roster is different every single year. So you've got to have good leadership in the clubhouse. You've got to have good leadership in the coaching staff. I think TCU baseball has that. Another thing that he's doing is because they've got 46 players on the roster right now, and they've got to get down to 40 by the time baseball starts, they're not going to do any kind of fall games. Last year they went down and played Texas State. They were supposed to host Sam Houston, but that game got canceled. They've done a prospects game with the Rangers out of Globe Life in the past. They've done some other stuff around the state. Tarleton has been one that they've played in the fall. But they're not doing any of that this year because they've got so many guys that they want to evaluate. They're just inter-squatting the heck out of the fall. And they're giving these guys live reps against each other and trying to identify these are the guys that we need in these roles because a lot of stuff is wide open right now. I will say, and I talked about this with Sarlos for a moment on Sunday today. I went out for their inter squad, and he joked. He's like, there are days where the pitching goes great, and you're like, oh, I don't know if we've got a lineup. Or there are days where the bats go crazy, and you're like, oh, I don't know if we've got a pitching staff. And I was like, hey, man, it's just like this fall. I thought TCU's running game was going to be great.
Yeah.
Turns out the run defense just sucks.
It's really bad.
And, we all thought it. Everybody that was out there, you, me, Jeremy, Steven Johnson, all the other folks, saw a very good running game this fall camp. And turns out not the case. It was an oasis. It was a facade. It was a mirage in the desert. That's the word I was looking for. Anyways, TCU baseball. I was out there a little bit on Friday. I was out there again on Sunday just to watch some guys get some live reps. And I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen so far. Pitching wise, hitting wise, guys have had their moments. It's been a very clear back and forth. Both units seem pretty even. Got a chance to see some new faces though that I think is really cool. So on Friday, left-handed pitcher Mason Brassfield, freshman, one of the highly touted freshmen that the Frogs are bringing in. He was one of the guys the staff was worried about losing to the draft. Came in, fastball in the low to mid 90s from the left-handed side. Really good changeup as well. Just an absolutely nasty changeup. Made some guys look foolish. Got hit a little bit as well, but made some guys look foolish. We saw Louis Rodriguez pitch. He changed his number, by the way, Melissa. He is no longer number 30. He is now wearing the old Jim Schlossnagle number 22.
Oh.
Interesting. He got knocked around a little bit on Friday. Noah Franco, another very impressive freshman, two-way player.
The ball comes off that kid's bat.
104.5.
Special way.
104.5 miles an hour in this case with a 33-degree launch angle. That ball traveled 410 feet. He mashed it. Isaac Cardena also got a home run on Friday off of Louis. Another 104 off the bat, 19-degree launch angle. Made it over the right field fence for a home run.
If you're not following TCU baseball data on Twitter, and you are on Twitter,
Frogball data, yeah.
Frogball data, thank you. Yeah, immediate follow. You can see the replays and also get all of the statistical analysis of that with the graphs and everything. It's great follow. They do a great
depending
job
on when they tweet out the home run that Micah Kendrick hit today on Sunday, you'll see my head in the background because I was sitting right behind home plate in the front row. So
perfect.
He absolutely sat on a pitch from freshman Tyler Finau, a side-arming righty who throws it in the high 80s. He sat on a pitch, got a good piece of it, and sent it for a ride. So Micah Kendrick hit a home run today. Two pitchers that I was really impressed with, though. First was Tommy Lepore, the Wichita State transfer. He is, funnily enough, wearing number 49. Peyton Tolley's number from last year. So next year, when another Wichita State transfer comes in, they're going to have to find a way to give him 49 and give Tommy Lepore 49 because Lepore's got multiple years to play. His fastball got up to 95 on Sunday. It looked good. He located it well. He had a changeup in the mid 80s. He had a curveball in the mid to low 80s as well. He struck out a couple guys. He struck out Jack Bell, the A&M transfer, looking on a curveball that was just absolutely perfectly dotted on the outside corner of the plate. Great pitch. He looked really good in his 2 innings of work. I think he probably threw about 35, 40 pitches. Again, fastball was up at 95, and I think that's one of the things that TCU was really missing last year was consistent velocity in the mid-90s. I mean, obviously you had Tolley, but beyond Tolley, you didn't really have much. I think that's going to be different for TCU in 2025 when the season starts because Lepore was in the mid-90s, and another kid, Nathaniel Stern, another one of these really fantastic freshmen. Stern is from Loyola out in L.A., Melissa. His fastball was sitting 94 today, and it had some really good life on it. He had a changeup, I want to say. No, actually, sorry, a curveball, according to my notes, down in the low 80s. So a nice little velocity difference there. He struck out a couple guys looking. He got Cardena to fly out to center field. He got Sammy Myers to ground out pretty weakly to first base. He also did give up an absolute rocket of a ball to JUCO transfer Preston Gamester, who tripled off the wall in left field. But he stranded him at third, so he made up for it.
Well, we want to see him get hit, so we know it's not just that the offense is bad, right? Like you kind of want to see that back and forth. We want to see that balance.
Yeah, you want to see some, and we did see some balance, right? So Gamster had a triple today. I thought freshman Trevor Baumler had a really good day at the plate. Freshman Sawyer Stroh-Snyder, I don't know how this kid didn't get drafted. I'm just going to say I don't know how Sawyer Stroh-Snyder didn't get drafted. Like this kid he's going to start in right field. He's going to hit in the top half of the lineup. I mean, he had 2 singles today off the bat that were probably 105, 106. He had a home run Saturday, from what I've told. He had a double off the wall in center field today that I don't know how it didn't get out. It hit like the top third of the wall. He's hitting the ball very, very hard right now, and it's good to see. So you got a couple freshmen that are swinging the bat really, really well. And let's see. Another thing that I wanted to note. We know that if you recall, Bill Mosello loves to be aggressive on the bases, and we're starting to see that right out of the gate in fall camp. One of the things that he's been doing during these inter squads is coaching third base, but also stopping play down for a second to walk a guy through what he wants him to do, whether he's at first or second or third, depending on the situation. But he is audibly hollering the whole time for guys to take the extra base. Every time the ball's in place, he's shouting at it. He's shouting. Can you get the extra base? Can you get the extra base? And then getting on guys if he thought that they could get there and that they didn't. TCU advanced well on the bases today every time a ball was in play. Guys were going first to third on singles. Guys were scoring from second. A lot of aggressiveness. They stole 5 or 6 bases today. It was a very nice thing to see from the offense. We also saw, Noah Franco hit a home run on Friday. He did pitch today as well. Fastball left from the left side was in 93, 94 range. He was a little erratic. He hit a guy. He walked a guy. I think I don't know, nerves, control issues, what it was. Sure. Freshman, sometimes it happens. But the velo was there. He did have a really nice strikeout of, let me see my notes. He struck out Zach Wattis. He struck out Cadena. He struck out Jack Arthur. He hit Wattis and Silva and Gamster. So he hit 3 guys. 3 hit by pitches, 3 strikeouts. You
balance.
win some, you lose some.
Yeah, balance is important.
But he's a guy to watch as fall camp continues, just as he kind of grows into the game, both sides.
This is a big fall
overall,
for Kirk Saarloos and TCU baseball. Yeah. It's a big 2025 is going to be a big year. Again, the talent, it just seems like it's off the charts, what they were able to keep from the draft, the guys they were able to get. But it sounds like there's going to be a lot of reason to pay attention to this group as they kind of come together and get ready for February.
Yes, it does. We saw Klecker pitch today. He looked really good. Fastball velo was there. He faced the minimum through his 2 innings of work. He struck out Cadena looking. He struck out Kendrick. He only gave up 1 hit, and it was a soft single to center. So he looked pretty good. He was using a 4-pitch mix today, which is something to keep an eye on as well. So, I think the team's in good shape from a talent perspective. Obviously, things are just getting going for the fall, and it's a long road to February. But the talent, in my opinion, is there again this year. Can they put it all together? I think they can. I think the staff changes that they made with TJ taking the head job somewhere else, bring Mosello back, a guy that Kirk can trust, a guy that he knows will do what he needs to do. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good for the team to have Bill Mosello back in the fold.
It's exciting. Football's going to do what it does to us emotionally, but we've got reasons to be fired up about basketball. We've got volleyball's a great run, soccer's a great run, and then baseball to look forward to too. So
we got some hoops. We got some hoops coming up in a little over a month. Yeah,
hoops is going to be here before you know it. I also want to make sure that I shout out TCU men's tennis. They are starting their indoor season. Duncan Chan. This is a guy who has played whatever role that Dave Roditi has asked him to do. He's played multiple spots in the lineup for the Frogs. Is having a heck of a weekend at the ITA All-American Championships. Got his first ever ranked win, and is on, I think, to the semis or the quarterfinals here after a great performance this weekend. So we have to always remember our reigning national champions, the TCU men's tennis team, and Rifle started the season with a win as well. So a true couple of freshmen.
Triathlon's ranked number 1 right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, football. We're going to stay behind. We're going to support. We know football pays the bills, but we are setting up for a really special TCU athletics year, and so. We know everyone loves to hate listen and hate watch to the show when TCU football loses, but we want to remind you guys we're going to be covering everybody this fall, and we are very excited about TCU athletics and what I think has a chance to be a really special year for the Horned Frogs across a multitude of sports. So it's exciting to see fall baseball go, and like you said, basketball is literally just around the corner. It'll just be a matter of weeks before we're celebrating the start of that season as well, and there'll be a lot to be excited about there. And then at that point is when volleyball soccer will be in the meat of their schedule and get ready for hopefully big postseason runs.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to all of it. That's going to do it, though, for this episode of the Frogs Insider Podcast presented by the Flying T Club. Again, go to flyingtclub.com to see how you can get involved today to support the over 110 student athletes that they partner with, or one of the many organizations that they partner with in and around Fort Worth. A big thanks to Dave Campbell's Texas Football for putting up with us. Republic of Football Network as well. Frogs Insider on YouTube. Go subscribe, like this video, leave us a comment. Tell us if you're hate watching for football or if you're happy watching for all of the other things that are going on at TCU athletics, or if you're just an SMU fan, or if you're a residual UCF fan that's still hanging around. Let us know that as well. Just get in the comments on YouTube. Let's get those.
They were fine.
Up.
They were great.
I like
UCF
UCF.
fans were fine. They were
I'll
great.
tell you this. We'll end on this anecdote. I got to do a Twitter space with some UCF fans in the middle of the week before the game, and that was they were like, it's from 7 to 8, just come on for like 20-30 minutes, talk. We had a blast. I think we went for like an hour and a half. I stayed the whole time. It was so much fun. UCF folks, y'all are great. Go kick ass the rest of this season. SMU fans, do your thing. Don't piss down your leg against Florida State.
Or do.
We'll see you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.